wait a minute. I feel like we already did this. About a week ago, in fact. Yeah, we already took a look at Super Mario RPG. But this is actually the Nintendo Switch Remake that just recently came out. Announced back in the June 2023 Nintendo Direct, this announcement came out of nowhere back then, at least for me, because if you guys remember that reaction, I pretty much Super Mario RPG blew my load. And even with the rumors circulating around at that time, it still caught me off guard. Just to see Nintendo finally give a damn about the one game that started the whole Mario RPG subseries was of course going to get me excited, and to put the icing on the cake, the remake was being developed by Arte Piazza. And for those who are uncultured, these guys are mostly well known for all the Dragon Quest games that they've worked on in the past. Like helping Heartbeat work on the PS1 version of Dragon Quest VII and Dragon Quest IV, all the SNES trilogy remakes on DS alongside Dragon Quest V on PS2, Dragon Quest VII Remake on Nintendo 3DS, and the 2D portions of Dragon Quest XI. To say getting these devs to work on Super Mario RPG was a great get is a massive understatement. These guys definitely know their craft. And for today, we're going to take a look at the remake and see all of the changes made to the game, from quality of life changes, the music, graphics, what have you. And you want a more in-depth review where I talk about the game as a whole, rather than talk about changes, then you should check out my original review on the SNES version, card on top. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's first talk about story changes, to which there's not really much. The story is still basically one-to-one with the original SNES version. All the events happen one-to-one with the original game. Though what really is a massive change is localization, as even though the remake still uses the Ted Woolsey's translation mostly, there are still some changes from the original Woolsey's translation overall, such as name changes. For example, Frog Juice is renamed to the Frog Sage, or Yardovich is renamed to Spearbitch, and some lines were altercated here and there. Gonna miss you, Bruce Lee. But for the most part, the Woolsey translation is still kinda intact. Though moving away from the story changes, which is really just translation changes, we have the presentation overall, as this has received a massive upgrade as we now have pre-rendered cutscenes from time to time, and these look fantastic. These are definitely the best thing about the game overall. And if you're someone who played the original game and need a reason to play the brand new remake, these definitely do it right here. In some cases, they actually do give some clarity to some cutscenes that probably really need some clarity. For example, the Geno cutscene in the original game kind of was hard to tell that Geno was having a hard time walking when he took the soul of the puppet, while in the remake with the pre-rendered cutscenes, you can clearly tell this guy's having a hard time to walk. But overall, these are fantastic, and oh my, how progressive. That actually made me lose my train of thought. Oh yeah, the graphics, as they actually received a major upgrade from the pre-rendered sprite look to full-on 3D models that actually fully animate. But at the same time, Arte Piazza knew to maintain the original art style of the original game, as the characters are still boxed in. Interior areas definitely make it look like you're looking into a toy box, while the outer areas were definitely improved. Rather than being these flat boxes, there's actual exterior areas beyond the areas that you explore. It really does make it look like you're looking into those big displays in a toy store. And because of the higher definition as this game runs at 1080p, certain little Easter eggs that you may not notice in the original game are much more noticeable here in the remake. And some of the Easter eggs you might have missed, you can clearly tell that they're referencing something from another game, which is really damn nice. Kudos to Arte Piazza. And as for the music, Yoko Shimomura is back with rearrangements to the soundtrack, along with the assistance of Natsumi Kameoka, Kamomichi Takeda, and Kentaro Ino. And everyone definitely did a stellar job with the soundtrack here. A majority of songs are actually now orchestrated, which all sound fantastic, from Beware the Forest Mushrooms, Hello Happy Kingdom, Fight Against an Armed Boss, and no, I'm not going to segue into a boss battle. And hell, songs that I didn't care about in the original game like Slope are fantastic here in the remake. Though I do wish some songs were given the orchestral treatment like Fight Against an Enemy. Even though I think the midis there were fine, I would have liked them to attempt an orchestrated rendition. And of course, if you're not a fan of these rearrangements, you can always switch back to the original SNES soundtrack, which is pretty nice. But overall, fantastic music here. Now let's talk about the changes made to the gameplay, starting with the combat. There's now a perfect mechanic for time hits. Whenever you attack at the right time, you can now do carryover damage to all the other enemies. And speaking of time hits, there's now an exclamation mark to let you know when to press the A button. And it does eventually go away when you continuously perfect the right timing for time hits, but if you start slipping up on the time hits, the exclamation mark will start coming back to kind of get you back on the right timing. And this also applies to blocking, to which you can now do a perfect block that basically gives you 0 damage absolutely. And it doesn't matter how big or how small the enemy is. Though keep in mind there are some attacks to which you cannot block at all, and the game will let you know you can't block them. And for special attacks, you can now use the A button to perform those said special attacks. Though, optionally, you can still use the Y button, which I was gonna say because I'm still used to muscle memory with the Y button, though thankfully you can still use the Y button for your specials. And the biggest change to combat is the ability to switch party members mid-battle. And this definitely does change how you approach battles in Super Mario RPG. Remember in my OG review where I said Mallow was basically useless after you got all the other party members? Not anymore with the party switching. If you're in a situation where you're going up against enemies that you know are weak to an elemental attack, switch one of your characters to Mallow, and there's no punishment for switching characters mid-battle. Use one of his elemental attacks and there you go. And this definitely is very nice of a change, especially when now every single party member now has a use. Even though I still primarily use the Mario, Geno, Peach setup that I had in the original SNES version. Aside from switching party members, there's now this gauge here that fills up to 100% anytime you do a perfect attack or perfect block or perfect special. And when it reaches 100%, it's not useful initially as you only have access to this Toad Assist where Toad basically gives you some kind of item or some stat boost. And when you get 3 party members at the very least, you can do a triple attack. And it can be either an offensive attack, a defensive attack, or a simple health refill, which comes in handy depending on the situation you're in. And you even have these nice pre-rendered cutscenes anytime you perform these triple attacks. But if you want to get a move on, you can't skip these. And finally, whenever you level up and you select your stat boost, they let you know how much that stat will increase. So definitely for sure you can do some pre-planning of which thing you want to level up first before you ultimately make the decision. And also they changed the locales of the level up areas rather than this weird area where people come out from a pipe. It's now a stage area and everyone dances in celebration for that one person's level up. And look at Mallow right there, he's definitely vibing right now. But let's move on to the other portion of Super Mario RPG, traversing the world and exploring. There's now auto-saving anytime you move to a different area, though you can still save the old-fashioned way. There's now a quick travel feature if you need to get a quick move on, and definitely eliminates a lot of backtracking back to the world map. And definitely for sure makes the hidden chest much more easier. And remember that one hidden chest? You don't need to do it on the one go anymore. Because anytime you return, they now have Toads wandering around, so it makes it easier to jump to that area and get that hidden chest. And regarding items and healing spells, you don't need to go into the main menu just to access them. You can now press the X button for items and the Y button for healing. And as for the minigames, there's now a HUD system that shows you prompts of what button does what, though they didn't fix this puzzle right here. It's still a massive chore to go through. And there's also now a scrapbook that retells the previous events of the game, retold by Mallow and Geno, though I kinda wish Mallow stopped with the puns. There's also now a bestiary that lets you go through all the monsters you faced previously, and if you use Mallow's Psychopath, which is now known as Thought Peak, you can see the weaknesses of the enemy, which is nice. Though my only problem with this bestiary is because of the fact that it has to load so many assets, going from one monster to another is just a chore because everything just has to load and it's just so damn slow. Maybe if there's a Switch 2 with faster processing, then maybe there's a reason why I would go through this bestiary. Just a thought. And also there's now an item box, which lets you store any items that you don't need anymore, or if your items are overfilling, they automatically go to the item box. And quite honestly, I didn't really use this because the game's already easy, and to put a little bit more salt in that easy wound, there's now a breezy mode if you feel the game's too hard. I didn't bother with this mode because I already feel Super Mario RPG is still an easy game overall. I mean, at the end of the day, the original game was designed to be a player's first RPG. And just for me personally, I wish they could have added in a higher difficulty, a hard mode which gives a more stricter time hits or less EXP or less items to carry around. I think having that mode would have been much more nicer for people who've grown up playing the original Super Mario RPG. I mean, I just want the option. But though, if you want a higher challenge, there is something more than just the base game. And if you don't want to be spoiled, skip to this section right here. After you beat Smithy and you watch the celebrations, and I guess Luigi was not ready to be in a scrunched in 3D, you have the ability to save your game and have access to the post-game content. To which you start back in Mario's pad and Toad telling you fighting Smithy was all just a dream. Sure it was. But anyways, Toad gives you this pass to let you sleep in Marrymore, and Geno notices something in Star Hill, which turns out more bushes, and it's mostly people saying, I want to fight a stronger person. and thus you can face a stronger variant of bosses you faced previously in Super Mario RPG. It's not every single boss, it's just some of them. And these guys are quite tough. There was only one instance where I was able to beat a boss in my first go. Everyone else, I had to beat on my second try or multiple attempts. And definitely for sure, these guys are quite challenging, but some of them wanted me to throw my controller because I was messing up on some timed hits. And some of these bosses are pattern based where you have to figure out the pattern of how to beat them. And when you beat all of these secret bosses, there's a secret boss you can face being a 3D version of Culex. Oh god, I have to contain myself. I failed to mention this, but before facing this 3D version, you do fight the original 2D version, music and all, which is still pretty nice, but oh my god, it's Culex in 3D and oh my god, that music. Oh my god, why are you doing this to me, Yoko? I can't contain myself. Oh my god, the victory fanfare. This is amazing here. Bowser even knows this as well. Oh my god. Oh my god! The prelude! But yeah, this guy's definitely very tough if you don't come in prepared, so make sure you stock up on all the items you need before facing Culex in 3D. And if you're wondering, it took me about 41 turns to beat Culex. Let me know how much it took for you guys down in the comments. And that's all the post-game content there. If you actually beat Smithy again after you do all the post-game stuff, your reward is basically seeing the post-game bosses doing their thing in the end credits. And overall, yeah, the post-game does offer a pretty decent challenge, but I do wish there was a little bit more extra. At least about an hour more of content. And I'm not really asking much, I'm just asking for more bosses to go on and face. But that will be my only complaint, and I think it's time for us to close it out again. As I mentioned in my original Super Mario RPG review, I expected to come in with the remake and fall in love with the game all over again. And it did that for the most part. The new presentation is fantastic, the remastered music, the quality of life changes, everything about this game definitely makes it feel like the definitive way of playing Super Mario RPG. And definitely nowadays, the most accessible way, seeing how, like I said, cartridges are now at a high price, virtual consoles now non-existent, meaning no way of playing Super Mario RPG on a Wii or a Wii U. And of course, not everyone's a fan of emulation. Overall, if I were to recommend someone to play Super Mario RPG for their first time, I definitely would recommend them the Switch Remake because of all the quality of life changes. But at the same time, I did want more with the remake. I do wish they could have added in harder difficulty, maybe they'll add that in with an update, and I do wish there was a little bit more post-game content. Other than that though, I enjoyed my time with the remake, and don't get it twisted, I still fell in love with the game overall. And once again, do give this game a try. Hey, thank you guys for sticking to the end of this video, and let me know what you think about Super Mario RPG Remake down in the comments below. And if you like this video, consider hitting that like button. And if you want to see more videos, definitely do check out these videos here. I think you'll enjoy them. See you guys on the next one. Take care.